So this week, it looks like we have another chapter of the Cutie Map, making this an important episode. Well, from a critic first and a fan second, let's get the second opinion.
I'm bored.
Twilight bored with reading. Roll the intro. Oh, actually, it turns out that Twilight won't be solving her problem in this episode.
Yes! Finally! We've been summoned. I wonder where the map wants us to...
Twilight?
You did end up quite a fan of the hustle and bustle of Manehattan on our last visit.
It's such an exciting city, and there's still so much I'd like to do there. But this is your mission.
Well, this is sounding an awful lot like what happened the last time two ponies that weren't Twilight were summoned by the map. In fact, if I didn't know any worse, I'd say a personal conflict were taking shape with young Twilight.
Don't worry about me. I've got plenty of books to keep me busy.
But in the meantime, let me point out that this episode absolutely kills it in the little reaction moments like that. Each and every one of them is hilarious.
We're off to solve a friendship problem in one of the busiest and most vibrant cities in all of Equestria. We just saved that poor pony from committing a terrible crime of fashion. Why?
In fact, the strongest portion of this episode might just be the build-up to finding out what the conflict is, where they make plenty of room for little moments like that. Plus, that build-up is done pretty darn well, with Applejack speculating on why she was called to go with Rarity to Manehattan, while they both attempt to figure out how you locate a special friendship problem.
Friendship problem, any pony? See, we've been sent here to... a map summoned us and,
Friendship advice! Any pony looking for friendship advice? Good grief.
Maybe Twilight's right. Of all the rarities in the world, you're the raritiest. And then, of course, we get to the conflict, where it turns out that someone we know is trying to carry on a tradition that a generous old Broadway veteran started back in the day of putting on a free play in the park as a way of bringing the neighborhood together.
No matter how busy she was, she always made time for the revival. But when she moved away to be closer to her grandfillies, the neighborhood lost the special tradition she had started. And worse, the sense of community it fostered.
Oh. Her. And why not? I mean, she was in the last Manehattan episode that I reviewed back in the days when it was just unscripted vlogs with an even smaller handful of people watching, and had a very different reaction to than most of the fan base, and probably would have been my most controversial review if anyone actually remembered it. Say, why don't I compare this to a different episode? Like, the other Cutie Map episode, Lost Treasure of Griffinstone. Yeah, that's a good comparison. They both start with the characters going to a place they kinda know, but at the same time kinda don't. There's some comedy with that. They meet up with an old friend and get some insight into her as they learn about her problems. They try a heroic, full-scale solution that doesn't work, and then they realize that all they really needed was to find the first step in getting the town to solve their own problem. Which ends up being the weakest part of the episode, because while it's a nice idea, and that friend will still be around to lead the way, the episode uses that as an excuse to end before it feels like any real change has been made, going past the point where it feels like there's more story to tell, and making it feel like we still haven't finished this chapter.
I just wish I could share this experience with you and the others.
Yeah, what's going on?
It's the Midsummer Theater Revival. The Method Man's are performing.
The revival. Yeah, my pop used to bring me.
We just wanted to see how much we enjoyed the Midsummer Theater Revival and how much it inspired us.
I used to think that to help my community, I had to do something big. But here, you did something as simple as building a stage and putting on a play, and look at how it's brought every pony together.
Wow. That actually feels like a very significant change.
I know why the map called you here.
you do?
If Twilight had used her magic to fix the park, it wouldn't have fixed the real problem. But by building that stage and making sure the play went on, you showed them that just by doing something small, you can make a big difference.
And that's actually kind of touching. I mean, it's not every day I feel like Applejack learned and grew without the writers recycling what they already did or making her act in a way that just doesn't feel like her. She's long overdue for a comeback at this point, but This in simple ways have to be her best outings since all the way back in Season 1. In fact, you know, this is kind of the answer to my complaints about Rarity Takes Manhattan, both in its moral and in and of itself, because the moral here also applies to how you convey your point. You don't have to try to conquer the world to make a heartfelt point. You don't have to try to make every little thing as dramatic and emotional and definitive as you possibly can. You just have to deliver the message that you think is the most helpful. The one that means the most to you, I believe the saying goes. It only needs to be as dramatic or emotional as the situation warrants. You don't need to tell us how these two were perfectly perfect angels and the world was just so cruel. So much that they started turning cruel at the drop of a hat in 15 minutes and only asked themselves, what have I done, and made things right when they realized they might lose their friends forever. It's enough for Applejack to just do the best she can in a very humble Applejack way, and then hear a little speech from Rarity on why she and not someone else was the pony they needed. It gets across that she's understandably uncertain, that she's a good, hardworking soul, and that she's accomplished something the other characters and you really can get behind. Although, I will say, this dialogue could have used a rewrite, because they kind of keep repeating the same point once too often without even rephrasing it that much.
You did something as simple as building a stage and putting on a play.
I imagine if you look around, you'll find there's lots of little ways for you to get involved in changing this place for the better.
You showed them that just by doing something small, you can make a big difference.
Now the writer this time was Noelle Benvenuti, and the only other episode she's written to date is Maud Pie. But with this on top of that one, she's proving herself to be very good at understated writing, the kind of stuff that doesn't always depend on closing scenes with a bang, so to speak.
This next one is about rocks. They're all about rocks. Rocks. These are my rocks. Sediments make me sedimental. Smooth and round, asleep in the ground.
But there's one more thing this episode has in common with The Lost Treasure of Griffinstone. That I'm not going to rank it as a great episode. In fact, it might even be the weaker of the two, because for as much as it does right, it still feels a little underwhelming after the finale. Though this time, it's not because of the finale itself. It's how it works its way up to it in the part right beforehand.
I think I've got a plan. It won't be anything big or fancy, but it'll be something. And something's gotta be better than nothing, right?
I suppose so.
That's the spirit. Sorta. All right, y'all. It's ready.
Yeah, that's the big moment of truth. Applejack decides that they're going to build a little stage, and we just cut to the play starting to be a success. There's no Coco Pamel starting to come into her own and get behind it, no sweating out any reasons it might not work, barely even a transition at all. We don't even get a montage. Look, the parts where they were trying to get help and get it all done on their own were entertaining, but the reason to be invested was because it seemed to be building towards something. This was a struggle that Coco, Rarity, and Applejack were all invested in, and we wanted to see them work through it. Cutting to the solution right after the knockdown in round 1 takes something out of it. We don't see them really get behind this project, and we don't get as strong a sense as we could have of what this play could do for the neighborhood. In short, Coco Pamel's just not as interesting as Guild of the Griffin. Not this time, anyway.
I just wanted to live up to Charity's example. To bring my neighborhood together again. The park is still a mess. We haven't even thought about what refreshments to serve during the performance.
Alright, so the next episode is called Brotherhood Social, and actually, hold on.
I just remembered something. The Sisterhood Social.
We'll have to miss it. No telling how long we'll be in Manhattan. I sure hope Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle aren't too upset.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, well, my cutie map agents haven't dropped by and fixed my problem yet, so cut me a break there, okay? In the meantime, if you'd like to watch another video in this series, click the link on the right. Otherwise, just check the description for more links, and I'll see you next time.